Hey, 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 hey. Okay, so we got us working. And so, y'all, it's always interesting trying to figure out this technology, but we got it. All right. I am so excited for today's class because let me just tell you, if you've been in the world for the past couple of days, I'm sure it's been very interesting for you as it has been for me as well. And so I think that this topic today is so very timely. And I'm glad that you are here for it. If you are here live, please drop your name in the chat and where you are tuning in from. I'd love to give you a shout out, but we're really going to be talking about how to discover the career that you were meant for, right? How to discover the career that you were meant for. And I think that it's always interesting, right? When I have these topics that are so timely. Right now, there are so many people who are losing their jobs. And so I think it's very timely that we have this actual conversation because the country is in a bit of an uproar. There's a lot of turmoil going on, a lot of changes. People cannot catch their bearings. People are losing their jobs, unfortunately. And it kind of makes you think and wonder when there's so much going on in the world, how does all of this pertain to you, and how do you actually move forward in life despite all the things that are going on in the world? So we're gonna get into it today. I can remember when I first started to try to figure out what my career was, the one that I was meant to ultimately do. I went through a lot of different things. I was a real estate, um, I was real estate agent. We did insurance in my family. I did social work. I was a therapist. I worked in a hospital. I was a director of a teen moms program. What else have I done? I've of course run my own business for now about 16 years. And so as I was thinking about, the career that I was meant to do, I had to first start off trying some things. And most of you all are working. You work. And so the chances are you've tried a lot of things and you might have not fallen upon the thing that you feel like you were meant to do or the thing that is your purpose. And I will say to that, in order for you to get to that thing that you feel is your purpose and that you were meant to do, you do have to try some things. And chances are you've tried some things and you've come to this point. Hi, Mardell. Thanks for watching. And so you've tried some things and you've come to this point and you're like, all right, so where do we go from now? Where do we go from here? And, one of the things you have to think about is, especially when you're in a place of transition or when you're in a place of contemplating your next move, you have to really think about number one, why do you want to move? Right? Why do you want to move? And what's your long term goal? What's your long term goal in the move that you're trying to make? Let me give you an example. When I first started off in business, right? Because I've been an entrepreneur for, man, since I was young. I was that kid that would go to school and sell candy to all my friends. I would go to the candy lady back in the day. Candy and Tootsie Rolls used to be they used to be a penny. And I would go to the candy lady in my neighborhood and I would buy candy, and for a penny sell it for 5 cents, 10 cents. I would mark that thing up. So I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. But when I first set out to become a speaker in particular, I saw myself as this amazing big name brand speaking all over the world to audiences, mainly women, motivating them to step out, be courageous, and find their purpose and share it with the world. So that was my ultimate goal. That was the business that I wanted to run. And it was a noble thought. And let me just say, I still speak all over the country. Um, and I've, been able to speak in more places than I thought that I would ever speak. And speaking is my first love. I love it so much, right? But as I started living life and having children and all of those things, I started to think about, is this the life that I want to live, being on the road all the time? You got to think about it. The speakers that I know who are super successful, they are speaking. They're doing the job of speaking. And because they are who they are, they're the only ones who can do the job because people pay them to actually come and speak and pour into their audiences. And they're on the road all the time. And I thought about that life and I was like, do you really want to be on the road all the time speaking and away from your kids, away from your husband, away from your family? And I don't know about you, when you have to travel a lot for your job, I know I get really discombobulated, meaning it takes me a moment to get back into things when I get home. I just didn't want that. I didn't want that. So I had to think about what the ultimate goal was. And I boiled that down to, if I had to speak once or twice a month, that would be good for me. And because speaking once or twice a month may or may not bring in the type of money that I need to live on, what else what else was I meant to do? So you have to really think about your vision. I think a lot of times when we think about getting a job and figuring out what we were meant to do and figuring out our purpose and stuff like that, we're not thinking about the whole vision in life. But it's necessary. You have to think about your entire vision in life before you actually go after what you think was you were meant to actually do. So what is that vision for you? What is it that you truly, 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 what's the ultimate goal? So when I started thinking about, the ultimate goal was not for me to be on the road all the time, but I still love speaking so much that I'm willing to do it once or twice a month. I had to start thinking about, okay, if that's not going to work, which is my purpose, it's my passion, right? I am purposed to pour into the lives of women, pour into the lives of men in terms of helping them become more successful, right? Create their own happiness, and find the career that they love, right? That's my job, to help you learn how to be more purposeful in your whole life. So if that's what I am purposed to do, but I know that it doesn't fit along with my long-term goal, then what? Then what? You have to ask yourself, then what? And so I asked myself, then what? And luckily, throughout all the things and all of the training and all of the things that I was going through, I found coaching. And coaching gave me the ability to use my skills as a social worker, because before this I was a social worker, but it gave me the ability to use my skills as a social worker, as a therapist, and all those things to be able to figure out what my next move is. To be able to figure out what my next move is. So your next move is to figure out what you're strong at. Right now, in our country, there's a lot of things that are going on. And I feel like there are a lot of people who are getting jobs that they are not strong at. That should not be you. That should not be you. You need to be able to tap into a job that you are strong at. I call it your vehicle, right? For me, communication has been my key, my number one strength is communication and zest, right? If we talk about character strengths, my strength is zest. I always say I'm going to show up zesty, honey. But that's my number one strength. So if that is my number one strength, which is communication, how can I use that in another vehicle? That's what you got to ask yourself. And if you don't know what your strengths are, you need to take an assessment. You can pay for an assessment by yourself. You ain't got to wait for your organization to give you an assessment. The VIA character strengths assessment is the one that I love the most because it really does tap into our character. And so I like that. But I also like the Clifton Strengths Finder. These are probably assessments that you heard before. The VIA, you don't have to pay for. The Clifton does have a fee. You can pay for an upgraded version of the VIA, which I do suggest because it gives you a lot of insight into you, into who you are, into how you operate. Because I think that's the first thing that we need to learn is how do I operate? How do you operate? Right? What are your tendencies? That you go through, right? Where are you strongest? And so I do believe in paying for assessments. And so I think that's one thing that you can do, but you need to find out. You need to find out what it is that you're strong at. Because for me, I've always known that I was strong at communication, but I had to find the vehicle to fit the lifestyle that I ultimately wanted to live. That's a word. Some of us see these big shiny objects. And what I mean by that is you see all these people out here doing this amazing thing. And I was that way, man. I would see people speak and I'd be like, oh my God, I want to do that. But I didn't really know what that entailed. I didn't know what that truly entailed. All I knew was that I wanted to speak across the country, across the world, and that was it. Without understanding that, oh, shoot, this is going to take me away from my home. This is going to take me away from my kids. This is going to take me away from my husband. Maybe I don't want to speak as often as I thought I was. Like, oh my gosh. Right? So you have to think about this next move that you're trying to make. How does it align with your ultimate goal of the way you want to live life? I truly believe, right? I don't know if you can see it. There you go. Right? When it pertains to us creating our own happiness, we sit by and think about other people creating happiness for us versus us creating our own happiness. And what that means is you thinking about your long-term goals, despite what everybody else is doing or telling you you should do. You should only be doing what you think is best for you, what your family unit has decided was best for you. When I started my company, me and my husband Jamil, we had to have a talk. Right? Because I know some of you want to start businesses. And we had to have a talk. We had to have a talk about what this looks like for our family. Because I don't know if you heard. I don't know if you heard, but I'm gonna let you know that starting a business is not easy. It's not easy. Do I think it's worth it? Absolutely. Is it easy? No. It's just not easy, right? And so I I really did have to have this conversation with him. And when we sit down, we actually came up with a plan that I would start the business and try to get the business, up and running as quickly as possible. Also, still do contract work so I could bring in some money while I was trying to run the business because we did not have the luxury of me not bringing in any money, right? We had to have two incomes. So I would have to still hustle, right? And bring in some money. And then he would work full time. He would be that W 2 employee, even if he wanted to start his own business. This is the deal we came up with each other. And it ultimately worked, I will say, because I have now two successful companies. And I work, from my home office every single day. And it's been working for us. But I could not have done that if I didn't have the support from him. And we also had to make that deal because in the beginning, I was speaking a whole lot. I was gone all the time. And some of you may see me on social media because I'll post when I'm someplace else. I'll be like, wheels up, or hey, headed to such and such, and you'll see me and you're like, oh my God, you're always on a plane. And so I do still speak and I do still travel for work often. But at the end of the day, I don't do that as much as I used to because I realized that was not the life I wanted to live. So I had to do that. So I love your question, Mardell, is how would you find the right career? How do you find it for yourself, right? Which is what we're talking about. So I think we talked about first, figure out what your ultimate goal is. Like I'm giving you the steps right now, right? Like I think that a lot of times we think that you can wrap these things up with a bow and say step 1, 2, 3, which I am doing a little bit of that, but you can't skip steps, right? Like you can't skip steps. A lot of us think that the stuff that I'm talking about right now is frou-frou and she and all that kind of stuff. But had I not figured this part out first, I wouldn't be where I'm at. So you got to think about the ultimate goal, and then you have to figure out what you're strong at. You can't just go for a job and not be strong at that thing. You have to figure out what your strengths are. And then now that you've figured out your strengths, you need to really start looking out there in the world to figure out what that next thing is. So when I figured out my strengths of communication, I started to ask myself, how can I best use this? If you have a job right now, right, and that job is not best utilizing your strengths, one thing you can ask yourself is, are there better opportunities on this same job or with this same company that would better suit my strengths? I found coaching because I knew that I was an amazing communicator. I found coaching because I had a background in social work and I had a background in doing therapy, and I knew that I was great at helping people overcome their challenges. So as I was researching, right, getting out there researching different job positions, I came across a thing called coaching. And even then, people in my speeches started asking me to help them. And I found out that help was called coaching. So I embarked upon a whole career to become an executive coach. When I first started coaching, I was only doing life coaching though. And then that turned into career and executive coaching, which is what I do primarily right now. I'm telling you, I'm amazing at helping individuals figure out their purpose in life and the career that they were meant to. Right. So if you ever came to me for personal coaching, I can work with you and we get it done. Right. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to give you some like the broad step of how to actually do that and find that career that you were meant for. So the next thing you need to do is you really need to start looking on these websites for jobs that fit your skill set or jobs that you dream of. When I say the job that you dream of, you got to be qualified for it though, right? You can't not be qualified for the job. You have to be qualified for the job that you dream of. I was qualified to be a speaker, right? But I realized that full-time speaking every month wasn't something that I wanted to do. And with the job of with coaching, I knew that I had to go get a coach certification. Let me just say something about that. Y'all see me, right? Let me say something about that. Coaches, if you've ever thought about coaching, if you ever thought about, coaching, no, you do not have to have a license because coaching is not licensed, right? But I do recommend that you get a coach training, go to coach training school and get a certification for coaches, because what most people think coaching is not what it is. Most people think coaching is consulting. I hear stuff like, oh, yeah, I would be a good coach because I love telling people what to do. And people always coming to me for advice. That's not coaching. That's not coaching. Coaching is a partnership. And it is you as a person helping helping your coachee get to and find their own answers in life, right? That's what coaching really is. And so if you want to become a coach, I say you need to go to coach training school. Go to coach training school. My company, we just launched our coach training program. Send me an email. I can send you more information about that. But yes, go to coach training schools. But this is how I learned that I wanted to be a coach, is because I was looking out there. I figured out through research that coaching was my thing. And that's what some of you are going to have to do. You're going to have to do some research. So I would say get on LinkedIn, LinkedIn jobs. I mean, there are so many jobs that have been posted on LinkedIn, right? And if you know what your skill set is, you know the direction you want to go in, start looking for jobs out there that would fit that, because that's where the good is getting good, right? When you can get out there and you can look for a job on the internet and you can see something that makes you say, oh my God, this would be the perfect job, then you know exactly what you're looking for, even in other places outside of LinkedIn. There's all these job sites, right, that you can go through. But you need to pick one, whatever that is for you, and start looking for the positions that you want to do. Now, here's the thing: if you want to start a business, chances are you probably know what kind of business you want to start. But I do believe starting a business just to start a business ain't a reason to start a business. It's not sustainable. Trust me, I know. I know. And I know that a lot of people, especially these entrepreneurs who are trying to get your money, trying to help get you to coach with them, and they don't even know what coaching really is, but that's what they do. They will have you to believe that starting a business is the best thing since sliced bread, no matter what. The lies they tell. The lies they tell. And I've seen so many people start businesses only, only to go back and find a job. Because this stuff right here is not for the faint at heart. Now, I believe in starting businesses. I believe in creating something that you can feel proud about. But I also believe that you need to start a business because you feel passionate about something that you want to share with the world. So for me, starting my speaking business was because I felt passionate that I could help people through and overcome their challenges and be more successful. I started coaching because I absolutely knew that I could help people overcome and figure out their purpose in life and be able to figure out the career of their dreams and the one that they were meant to, right? So I started that business because I knew that. Let me just tell you, those are the only things that have sustained me. Because when there were months that I did not have money and I had to find another way, I figured out another way. Now, let me just tell you, I've wanted to quit 1,000 times throughout my career. Me and my girlfriends, we joke because a couple of my girlfriends are entrepreneurs as well. And we all, at some point in time, wanted to quit being an entrepreneur and just go get a job. Like all of us. We would call each other up and say, I'm quitting. I'm for real. I'm quitting. I'm going to go get a job. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, right? I've coached so many women who have actually started businesses and decided that it was best for them to go get a job. And I'm like, girl, do what you got to do, right? We got to do what we got to do to eat. And so, but if you want to start a business, I would say start a business because you have something to give and share, and you're going to be sustained throughout that. I can't tell you what that is personally at this moment, but you probably already have an idea of what that might be for you, right? And I'm not saying that you have to be full time in the business. Maybe try to find this next job and also start a business on the side, right? There's several ways to do that. But right now where we're at with you is looking. You're exploring. You're exploring all these websites for the kinds of jobs that fit your skill set and your strengths. And then the last thing I'm going to say is you got to start applying. You got to start applying. If you don't know your skill sets, and if you haven't asked yourself the right questions, I'm going to tell you to get my book. It's right back there, but it's called Get Courageous Now. A Woman's Guide to Finding Her Passions and Purpose in Life. And in chapter 2 of the book, I've curated a list of passion-driven and purpose-driven questions. And these questions have helped hundreds of women discover their purpose in life. And I want you to grab the book off, Amazon or wherever, and look at those questions and really start thinking about what that is so that you can start thinking about your passions. Where do they lie? Where does your strength lie? Right? And then you can begin looking for the jobs that fall into line with that. Right? There's some really amazing questions that can help you narrow down where you're supposed to be. If you're at a place where you're like, I have no clue, get the book and look at those questions. And then when you do have a little inkling, and let me just tell you, you don't have to see the end of the road before you start this process. A lot of us want to see exactly how everything ends. You don't need to see how everything ends. All you need to know is where you are right now and choose the next best step for you. Not even the next right step, but the next best step for you, right? And so if you want a career change, but you don't know what, Mardell, get the book and really look at those purpose-driven and passion-driven questions. They will help you start to narrow down on the what, right? If you want a career change, you got to start asking yourself some questions like, what did I want to do when I was younger? What am I most passionate about right now? All those questions will help you sit down. You got to sit down with them. And you have to truly start going through it and thinking about those questions. And then you can turn around and start looking in those spaces based on the answers that you put to the questions that I gave you in the book. That's where you start. And then, of course, y'all, if you want more specific help, reach out to me. You can find all my information at drkiki.com, and maybe it's worth a conversation so that I could work with you personally on finding the career that you want. But if not, I'm still giving you some steps that you can start with. So right now we're at take action. It's time to take action. Either you do know, and it's time for you to start looking on some websites and applying. Hello, somebody. You got to apply. And let me just say this. You can't just apply to one job. You know that. You can't just apply to one job. You got to apply to more than one job, because at the end of the day, one job is probably not going to get you there. You may not even get a call back. I have, clients that I've coached and they're still applying and they still haven't gotten a call back. The other thing I'll tell you is to reach out to your network. There is no better thing than your network. People who already have jobs, right? Reach out to those people and see if there's opportunities available for you, because I don't know if you know, but the way we get around a lot of things in this country is who we know. And so you have to start networking with the people who you know. And there's no shame in wanting to change jobs. There's no shame in wanting to be at a different place in life. None of that. When I was getting ready to move and trying to figure out coaching, I hit up all my friends and family and I coached every last one of them, because that's the career that I wanted to go in, right? And so I had to ask everybody for favors and allow me to coach them, and that's how I got good. So this is where you're at. If you don't know, if you have no inkling on direction, get my book, Get Courageous Now, and look in chapter 2 and go through the purpose-driven and passion-driven questions. And then start thinking about where the intersection between your passions and your strengths lie. Because see here, to me, your purpose lies at the intersection of your purpose, of your passions and your strengths, right? So where do those lie? Answer those questions and then start looking at jobs that might fit where that intersection is. That'll lead you in the right direction to start figuring out what it is that you want to do if you want to change jobs. And the chances are you have an inkling of what that is, but sometimes we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust ourselves to feel like this the right direction. But even if you have an inkling, that is where things can start. That's where things can start. All right, y'all. I hope that this was helpful. I want to leave you with, you got to take action though. I can say all these things to you all on a weekly or a monthly basis, but if you don't take action on anything that I say, then at the end of the day, why even be here? So take some action, come back, to this video. If you're watching live, if you're watching not live, right, if you're just watching the video, post in the comments what you decided to do. If you're here live, post in the comments what you're going to decide to do. What is your next step? Right? What is the next step that you're going to take away from this conversation that we've had today? What's the next thing that you plan to do? Because at the end of the day, it's up to you. It's up to you, and it's in you to figure out. All right. So post that here. I'll look out for your comments. I'll comment back, and I want to see you here for our very next class. I can't wait to challenge you all and coach you all through really getting through and figuring out this next move for you, because you deserve to be walking in your purpose, and somebody else deserves to take part in your purpose as well. So on you. All right, y'all. Take care.